Joining me now is the New York Post's editor-at-large, Kelly Jane Torrance. Kelly, thanks so much for joining me. The US House of Representatives has finally passed a vote to end the longest government shutdown in America's history. Now, this vote allows a short-term bill to reopen the government after a record 43 days. Take a look as the president blasted the Democrats as he signed off on the bill.
They deprived more than 1 million government workers from their paychecks and cut off food stamp benefits for millions and millions more Americans in need. They caused tens of thousands of federal contractors and small businesses to go unpaid, and the total effect of the damage their antics caused will take weeks and probably months to really calculate accurately. I just want to tell the American people, you should not forget this. When we come up to midterms and other things, don't forget what they've done to our country.
Kelly, it's finally over, but what happens now?
Well, great question, Caroline. And everybody here seems to be saying our long national nightmare is over. But I think your average American it wasn't as obsessed with this drama as everybody in New York, where I am, of course, and Washington, D.C. were. It is going to take some time to get back to normal, the pre-shutdown normal. Obviously, with flights being canceled, delayed, that sort of thing, that has a domino effect. And so it's still going to be days more of delays. And of course, Thanksgiving coming up toward the end of the month here in America. So they should have it wrinkled out by then. But certainly the next few days are still going to be a bit crazy. And then, of course, getting the food stamp money to the beneficiaries, paying the government workers, this stuff all takes time. But politically, where do we go next is the question. The Democrats, really were trying to play chicken and utterly failed. They did this. They shut down the government, creating a certain amount of chaos just because they were upset at the ending of Obamacare subsidies that were actually put into place temporarily during COVID. Supposed to be temporarily, but that never happens when you expand a government program, does it? And also talking about giving up subsidies to people here, from other countries, possibly illegally. So the Dems really have egg on their face. They didn't get anything out of this except headlines.
Well, the Democrats and the Republicans, they've both been at loggerheads for weeks over who was to blame. It seems to me like it's pretty clear, like you point out, the Democrats were the ones that dragged this out for some, unbeknownst to us, at least it's not obvious, political reason. And it does seem like it was the Republicans who finally got the job done and ended all of this. How did they manage to do that?
Well, timing was part of it, Caroline, and that's when the Democrats were finally willing to give in, and that was after the elections. Last Tuesday, we had a bunch of elections, obviously not presidential, but there were some seats up for grabs, some governorship up for grabs, and of course the Democrats wanted to use this shutdown in the hopes that it would help them, and it actually did. But that may be a very short-term gain, and we don't know if how much the shutdown really had to do with their wins, given that, in some cases the Republicans didn't have the greatest candidates in some races. Others, it was going to be an uphill battle for Republicans to win anyway. So it's unclear really how much that had an effect. But that's after the elections. The Democrats were a little more willing to give in. And once you saw this travel chaos getting worse and worse, and if it was going to bother Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving is one of the biggest travel days of the year here. I think more people I know go to visit their family for Thanksgiving than even do on Christmas. And so they certainly didn't want that chaos ruining the holidays for millions of Americans.
Yeah, there wouldn't have been much goodwill for the Democrats if they had let that impact the holidays. Kelly, it seems like there is growing pressure now for Chuck Schumer to step down as Senate Minority Leader. Do you think that could happen? And can you explain why he is facing that kind of pressure?
Well, it's funny, Caroline, because he's angered a lot of different Democrats. He's angered some on the more left flank that wanted him to stay strong and keep going with the shutdown. And then he has angered the more moderates who said this shutdown is not good for Americans. It's not good for my constituents, everyone's constituents. Why was he playing these games? You had Senator John Fetterman, who's, really holds the mantle of the moderate Democrats now, saying that there was no point at all to the shutdown. And then you have people like AOC, of course, and other members of the squad who really wanted the shutdown to just go on and on until who knows what, because Republicans were not giving in on this one. And they had no reason to, really. The things that the Democrats were fighting for were not even the things that most Americans would have wanted them to fight for. And it was just hurting, those who really did need the government open, like those on food stamps.
Well, if Chuck Schumer doesn't last as Senate Minority Leader, is there a suitable replacement within the party? Who do you think it could be?
There's going to be a lot of action there, and it's really going to show that there's huge divisions in the party. You've got the AOC types, Bernie Sanders, who's not a Democrat, but caucuses with them, of course. You've got the squad, Jasmine Crockett, who's there's no TV that she can't find, TV camera she can't find on Capitol Hill. She's been trying to get her name out everywhere. Those are the more people on the left. Now, to me, John Fetterman would certainly be someone who could work much better with Republicans than Chuck Schumer had, and then any of those would. But mostly, a lot of the party just thinks he's too moderate for the party. And so it's going to be quite an interesting thing to watch. And that's why I say don't count out Chuck Schumer just yet. It's very possible he'll be going down. But again, you need to find a replacement for him. And we saw how long that took the Republicans. I mean, there's been talk about Mitch McConnell, talk of him stepping down for years, and it took quite a while to find someone who they thought could be willing to do the job and do a good job of it.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Jasmine Crockett because she features on this show a couple of times, as viewers will see. She's quite a character. Look, as I referred to at the top of the show, the White House has responded after 20,000 new Jeffrey Epstein emails and documents were released with direct references to Donald Trump. Now, Congress in the US is pushing forward on a vote to force the justice system to release all its files related to Epstein, but the measure still faces an uphill battle. Kelly, the president has always denied any wrongdoing in regards to Epstein, but it seems like this is a story that just won't go away.
It really does. Just when you think maybe it'll have gone away, it rears its ugly head again. And of course, I was talking to a friend last night, and he said, well, I guess the big news of the day was, the Donald Trump stuff and the Epstein emails. And I said, but they turned out to be nothing. What are you talking about? And he just saw the headlines everywhere. He hadn't actually, spent the time reading the story. And then when you dig deeper, when you actually read those emails, there was nothing salacious really about Donald Trump. We certainly found out some stuff about some other people, including the man formerly known as Prince Andrew. But honestly, if there was something really juicy about Trump, that would have gotten out a long time ago. But the Democrats are using this now as a political weapon, which is funny because it had been the Republicans for a while, and now the Democrats are using it. I just, release the files. Take some care for the victims, release the files so we can all move on. End the conspiracy theorist reign on this one.
Well, it's interesting. You talked about those emails, and I spoke at the top of the show about how it seemed really cynical of the Democrats to release that particular email where Trump was referenced, but redact the name of the victim, which was Virginia Giuffre, of course, who has repeatedly denied that Trump had been anything but nice and good to her. So what did you make of the decision from the Democrats to release the emails like that in such a way as to, perpetuate this hoax?
It really shows, Caroline, just how dirty Democrats are willing to play. And of course, it's not like they also could say, well, we had to redact her name. we didn't want her to be known. I mean, she's written a book, and she, of course, ended her own life this year. So there was absolutely no reason. And of course, they must have known that it would come out who she was and how dirty the trick they played. But what do they care? They got the headlines they wanted. How more people saw those headlines than read the ones explaining that actually what the Democrats said was in there was really nothing. So they, their media enablers were happy to do the job for the Democrats. And it really just shows you how dirty they play in Washington these days. It's gone beyond, parody. And, again, the government's been shut down. They've been really doing nothing. And then to come out with this, while the American people really have a lot bigger things that they would like the representatives in Washington to be worried about.
Yeah, it's been a particularly bad week for the Democrats, I'd say. Kelly Jane Torrance, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.